know, bum 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 bum. 20 bucks, 20 bucks. We're on the line for 20 bucks. Hi guys, it's Jabor, Montreal. Hope you're all well, guys. Staying safe. Hi everybody. Come into my kitchen. I'm Maggie, Mrs. Calabash. It's a good full day today, and a little bit cool and a little bit damp. So I thought, right, my mind goes to sort of more comfort foods in this sort of weather. So we're going to do a very sort of full idea. We're going to make pumpkin soup, and this is a good English dish which I used to make when I was teaching in England, and it's cheese and bacon scones. Now you can leave the bacon out if you don't like the bacon, but come back with me to the stove and we'll start doing the pumpkin soup. Now this is a little bit different. My recipe is all there. Look, I mark it off as I weigh out and hope that I've got everything. This is using canned pumpkin instead of cooking pumpkin. I find there's no waste, nothing. Now the recipes, on the recipe said butter. I've actually got a little bacon fat here because I rendered the bacon for the cheese and bacon scones. I had some fat left over, and if you're not watching your cholesterol, that fat gives an awful lot of flavour to soups and whatever you're frying off. So I'm just using that instead of butter. When I was growing up, my mother used to keep a stone jar of bacon fat and dripping on the working surface, and it was used for everything. So we want to cook these. We're cooking the onions until they get transparent. I'm using a red onion today because that's what I had in, you know, whatever. I like a sweet onion for this, but I didn't have any sweet onions in. Garlic. I'm putting that in with the onion because I like to cook the onion a little bit first before I put the garlic in, because the garlic has, it's got more sugar in than the onion and it can burn. Grated ginger, fresh grated ginger. Again, put it in with the onion. It's nice having grated ginger, then you don't get a big blob of ginger in your mouth. And also, you've got all those cut surfaces. All the flavour of the ginger is going to come out, and ginger is really, really good for the digestion. Now, we've got a little chili powder, cumin, paprika, chili powder, a little chili powder, a little nutmeg, a little cayenne pepper, paprika. Let's put that in. Let's cook that for a minute or two with the onions, and then all the aromatic oils are released. We don't want to cook too long because we don't want to burn it. Now, this is the pumpkin, canned pumpkin. I tend to use, if I'm making squash, soup with squash, I tend to use the frozen squash, and then I don't have any wastage. There we are. Let's just stir that round. As I say, all we've got to do, because the onions are now cooked, the ginger is cooked, so we're really heating through. And today I'm using chicken bouillon. Now, if you're vegetarian, obviously you wouldn't be using the bacon fat. A nice butter. vegetable oil, or I like the Kirkwood sunflower, cold sunflower oil, cold press. It has a nice buttery flavour, and excuse me, the spices are getting to me. And but all at this stage, I would use a vegetable stock, or what I often do is just excuse me. There we are. We can always add a drop more liquid if we want it. What I do is I save the vegetable stock from when I cook vegetables, especially potatoes. It has that nice rich flavour to it, and I use that, and it adds, then you've got all the goodness from your vegetables and you've got the flavour. So we need to bring that up to the boil, and then simmer. But at this stage, because we haven't got any seasoning in, I'm just going to add excuse me, the spices are getting to me, a little seasoning. And this is a Mrs. Calabash special, 3 of salt to 1 of pepper. We can adjust the seasoning when it's cooked. And that is a very, very quick soup. Let me just taste. It just needs, no, I'm not going to add anything else to it at this stage, because as it cooks, the other flavours come out. Ooh, yes, there we are. Let's turn that down. And now we're going to make the scones. As I say, the scones will virtually cook whilst the soup's cooking. They have been taken about between 15 and 20 minutes, so they might just be cooked by the end of the show, if not, a bit like Blue Peter. Here's what I made beforehand. So come back with me to the butcher block. Oh dear, excuse me. Let me just wash my hands before I start with the scones. Now then, I'm making half the recipe on here. So we've got flour, baking powder, and I've made a mess already. The spices for this, you can leave these out, but it does complement the cheese. A little cayenne pepper and a little ground mustard powder. Mix those in together. Now you'll notice I've not got any salt in there, for the simple reason that the cheese has got salt and the bacon's got salt, so we don't need any more salt added. I need a knife. There we are. One of my trusty old knives. I had this when I left university in 1962, so I've only got 2 or 3 left. They were my dinner knives. So now we can either cut the fat in or do it the English way, rubbing in with the fingers. The secret to this is to keep the fat cold and bring it up like this. This is the same as making pastry, and as you bring it up, you're putting air in there like that. You don't want to overwork the flour. I'm just going to wash my hands again. When I was at culinary school, they actually used to come round and check to make sure you're supposed to keep the palm of your hands clean, and they would actually come round and check that you were doing that. Bacon. The amount of bacon you put in, I suggested 2 rashers. That's just my suggestion. If you want more, put more in. If you want less, put less in. I'm just going back to the stove. I can hear it bubbling, and we need to turn it down a little bit. There we are. That's better. So right, back to the butcher block. If you're watching your cholesterol, you can always use chicken bacon with this. or some of the other bacons. I don't think it's as nice, but it's just a matter of taste. Cheese. I need to leave some cheese to sprinkle on the top. I like a strong cheddar or Cheshire. I have in the fridge, I have various ends of cheeses which I tend to use for this. Now, I'm putting an egg in there. This is optional. If you put, and I need to leave a drop of egg for the top. If you put in an egg in, then you won't need quite as much milk. And I'm using buttermilk because then the buttermilk has got acetic acid in it, lactic acid rather, and that makes whatever you're baking rise. I don't buy buttermilk because I don't use it very much. So 1 cup of milk to 1 tablespoon of acid. Now for the acid we either use a lemon juice, a white vinegar or a cider vinegar. I tend to use lemon juice and leave it for at least 5 minutes, and that will make the buttermilk for you. And then you're not wasting. Now, we need a soft dough, but that's a little bit soft. So we have some spare flour, like that. Just, you notice I'm working it with a spatula or a wooden spoon because I don't want to handle it. The less you handle scones, the better the scones are. It's a bit like pastry. You need a very light touch. I used to sell home baking along with my preserves, and I'd have a market stall three days a week. And I had a student for a year, and from one of the culinary schools on a final year. And could I teach her to make scones? Oh, she would get them and she would pound them and they wouldn't rise and they'd be hard. And scones were one of my big sellers, the same when I came over to Canada. Actually, when I did a long time ago, 20 odd years ago, I did the craft shows over here in Merrickville, and I used to sell scones. I used to probably go home halfway through the morning, leave Kate's dad with the stall and go home and make some more scones. I lived in Brockville, and I'd come back with another few dozen scones. Now, you see, I'm just using my fingertips. And Marie, to get back to Marie, she would pound it at this stage. And I said, no, gently. And it took me a whole year to get her to teach her how to bake scones. At the end of the year, she got a job with a competitor of mine with a bake store who made scones. And I wasn't exactly amused, but there we are. And the school said, "Oh, would I take another student?" I said, "No, thank you." She could break anything. Oh, anything electrical she could break. Now, I've got scones like this. I made one earlier, like that, you see? And that was in a round. So, oh, excuse me. Let's have a look at this. Let's do it with the pastry cutter. So, you can either just push it out with the hand. Now, you don't want to go too thin when you're making scones, because you need a scone that you can tear in half and still have a good thickness. And just put them like this. And these freeze really well. They really do. Shape them round. But the best cutting of scones, the first cutting a scone is always the best. So these, we don't waste anything, but these aren't going to be quite as light. Just press it down like that. And this one will just make, there we are. We don't have to put that in there. So you see they're quite thick even to begin with. I've got parchment paper. Now you'll notice that the parchment paper has been used. I used it this morning. There's no need to use fresh parchment paper every time, only when it gets really well used. And this was a trick that Derek told me. I don't know if it's going to work. To stop anything sticking on the parchment paper, scrumple it up and put it on, and then things don't stick. Something he read on the internet, so we'll see if it works. It worked this morning. So just a little milk and egg like that to make a glaze, and we're going to put some cheese on the top so that melts nicely. It's sticking together. Look at it, all lobbing together. If I use one of the English or Irish cheeses, they're a much harder cheese and they don't stick like this. There we are. Now I'm going to slip these in the oven at about 400. I've got mine at 405 because my oven isn't quite up to temperature. It's a bit slow. And they will take about 15 minutes. Now, they might be cooked for the end of the show, but they might not, but we'll show you what they look like. We do have some. Let's give this a quick stir. It's thickening, and I don't want it to stick on the bottom. It doesn't want to bubble too much. Just clean all the way around the edges of your saucepan or your pot, because it will burn otherwise. There we are. We'll taste that in a few minutes. So back to the drawing board, as the saying goes. Look, what a mess. Yeah. And this is what puts people off. But I find cleanup so much easier if I've got either a hard spatula or one of these steel rulers. And so look, just scrape it all. Scrape it all together. Put the bowl underneath your working surface. There you are, you see, it all goes in there. Not on the floor, a little bit on me, but that's par for the course when I'm cooking. So let's give this a quick wipe and brush myself down. Wash my hands at the same time. There we are. All nice and clean. So let's go back and just taste the soup, because it's getting to the stage where it's almost cooked. It doesn't take long, and I want to make sure the flavours are there. So come back to the stove with me. Just making sure it's not catching. So I'm going to taste it before I add any more seasoning. You can taste the ginger, that's nice. It needs a bit of, I'm going to put some salt in, just salt. I'm not going to add any more pepper. It doesn't need any more pepper. So let's just, I always keep a little pot. This is sea salt. Now, to garnish this, you can put, these are optional, you can put pumpkin seeds or sour cream, or just swirl some double cream in there. Actually, I'm going to put some double cream into here in the pan because I like the flavour. Yes. That's, it just needs a little more salt. Salt brings out the flavour of everything. There we are. Now I use double cream. You can use single. You can use, as I said, sour cream or half and half. I use double cream just in case it comes up to the boil. It won't separate. A single cream could separate, but you could use single cream as long as you simmer very carefully. So I'm going to just go back to the over there, and I'm just going to get a drop of cream and put it in now because I want that nice creamy flavour. Just a drop of cream in there. And I want that just to cook gently with some cream to give it a lovely creamy flavour. If I use pumpkin seeds, I toast the pumpkin seeds for this. Just, again, it brings out the flavour of the pumpkin. But I might today I've got some sesame seeds there. I might just sprinkle a few sesame seeds over the top. Sunflower seeds are very good as well. But again, I like them toasted. It brings out the flavour. So let's just have a quick look in the oven. Yep, they're cooking. And so let's go back and have a look at the scone that I made this morning. This is what I do when I'm in a hurry. I make a round and I scour it into 4. So let's have a look here and see what we've got. Now it will tear like that. I was always taught in the north of England that you never, ever cut a new scone. I do, but a traditionalist would always tear it open, but I don't. And you can put all sorts of things on to make it, you know, you can put sweet on it, cheese, tomato. I've lost my knife. That's what I'm looking for. Now, you're not forced to have them in such big pieces as this, you know, make them whatever. So let's see what we can do with these. Some nice butter. Let's put some butter on. Yee. It's a bit, it is best if the butter's a little bit softer at this stage because they're very new and as you can see, extremely crumbly. So a dish like that. Like that, we do these like this, and we can put those on the dish. Just if somebody, it's always an idea to put some undecorated one on the dish, just in case somebody doesn't, you know, they've got enough with the soup. And this really makes a substantial meal. It doesn't look as though it would, but believe you me, it really does. A really, really substantial meal. So let's just put those there and those there like that. Whoops. Get rid of those, get rid of that. And we have some cucumber, some tomato, and believe it or not, some apple. If you put Stilton cheese in there, apple and Stilton go really, really well together. So let's have a look. I tried to choose a nice red apple. Let's just cut down, take that out, cut thin slices. Now, if you're not serving, if they're not going to eat these straight away, dip the apple in lemon or lime juice, and that will stop the apple from browning. So we can put some apple, some slices of apple, and some slices of cucumber to get the two colours. There we are, like that. That's that served. Dum da dum dum. Soup. Ready to serve the soup. Have a soup tureen ready. Next there. Not quite cooked, but I'll show you what they look like in a minute. I know this is all nicely cooked. There we go. Scrape out the bottom because that's where a lot of the goodness is. There we are. Oh, it's heavy. Soup. A few sesame seeds just on the top of that. There we are. A few sesame seeds. Let's just have a look at the scones and see how they're cooking. I'll show you how they've risen. Look, they're gorgeous, aren't they? But they need a few more minutes. They'll need probably another 5 minutes actually. So they're going back in the oven for about another 5 minutes. Leave them like that. And I will dish up as Jabor plays me out. Whoa, I lost the spoon. 20 bucks. They're on the line for 20 bucks. Keep on playing, nobody's paying. No bands, some nickels and some dimes. Boom, 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 boom. 20 bucks. 20 bucks. They paid me for 20 bucks.